Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's time for another edition of the preview show, and this time round we're going to be previewing Leipzig at Celtic Park. Last week we headed over to Germany in a 3-1 defeat to the German side, but this week we welcome them back to Parkhead after facing them there a few years ago, as we look to win a game which I would say is must win for Celtic. There's no two ways about it. It's must win, and we might have a depleted squad, but we certainly showed last week that we have the qualities to beat a side like RB Leipzig. Now, before we go any further with today's video, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. The support on yesterday's video was fantastic, so let's hope the momentum carries forward into this one today. But it is time to preview tomorrow night's game against Leipzig. It's so weird. It's coming so quickly. Like, I feel like I was in the stadium last night over in Germany. It was only Wednesday, of course, that we took them on at their venue. They come to ours tomorrow. It's happening so quickly with that game sandwiched in the middle against St Johnstone. And people will go on about the implosion of Celtic and how maybe we're not keeping up to the same standards as what we set at the start of the season. No wonder. I mean, the amount of football that we're having to play, and when you throw in quality opposition like Leipzig, it's no excuse, of course, but it certainly creates a very big test for Celtic. And playing back in the Champions League for the first time in 5 years, it's going to be a test for all of these players. A lot of these players haven't even played in a lot of continental competition throughout their careers. So it's a massive step up. It's something that we've got to adjust to. And there's a hell of a lot of football for our lads to be playing. And that's, we've seen that. The injuries have kind of piled up a little bit over the past few weeks. We're going to speak about a couple of players in particular in this video, and Ange Postecoglou's update on them too. But yeah, this is the biggest game of the group so far. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There's no beating around the bush. It is a must win for Celtic. And look, listen, if we lose the game, we draw the game, and we put in a good performance again, I don't feel like I'll be too disheartened, in the sense that, I won't look at us thinking we're not good enough or anything like that. We've certainly showed over the course of the opening 3 games, we are getting better. We're trying to get back to Champions League standard, and we've progressed quite a lot under Ange Postecoglou when it comes to European football. But if we want to make any form of European football after the World Cup, after the Christmas break, we need to win tomorrow night. Simply put, I think it's just incredibly unlikely that we get to any of the competitions if we don't win. I know we've got a couple of games left with Shakhtar, Real Madrid, but tomorrow really sets the tone for the last couple of games, and if we win it, it keeps teams within our reach. You'd like to presume that Real Madrid will beat Shakhtar. Obviously, we'd beat Leipzig. It keeps things tight if we win tomorrow, whereas if we don't win, Leipzig pull away a little bit, Shakhtar are still ahead. It makes it a really, really tough proposition. So I would like us to go out there tomorrow night, realise the severity of the 3 points that are at stake, and put ourselves in a position that we can get through to the European football after Christmas. That's what I really want to see. The thing is, it's certainly a winnable game for Celtic. I'm not going to underestimate the opposition. We played them just last week and they beat us 3-1. But if you go back and watch the highlights from Wednesday night, we had our chances. If you go back and watch the full game, you realise that over the course of the 90 minutes, Celtic certainly had periods where they had some control. They showed genuine quality. And once again, we just let ourselves down in the game with stupid mistakes. We don't need to keep bringing it up, but the Joe Hart pass, that totally changed the entire complexion of the game. We were really lucky to, of course, see the goal disallowed just prior to the mistake. But if he doesn't pass that ball away and we keep it at 1-1, I remember standing there in the stadium thinking to myself, we can really win this game. All it takes is a chance or two, and we could be in the lead of this game. But no, Joe Hart passed it right to them, and it killed us. The heads dropped, we didn't look the same, and it was a mountain to climb from that point on. It's so stereotypical and it's so cliche of Celtic in Europe to say it's all about the mistakes and it's about ironing them out of our game. I feel like it's a broken record. I feel like I'm going to say that every single match preview for a European game, because at this point it feels like that is the difference between Celtic winning and losing these Champions League games. It was the difference about maybe taking the lead against Madrid and changing that game. Maida missing that huge chance just after half-time. The Shakhtar game, we should have won it, but we missed huge chances. Leipzig, we passed the ball straight to the opposition to give them the lead in the game. It's moments like that that just changes it completely. So it's certainly a winnable game tomorrow night. We showed the quality away from home. So now it's bringing that back and translating it into our home performance. Using the Celtic Park crowd, the 12th man if you like, putting a bit of fear into their game, force them to make mistakes. We've got to use that to the advantage. We've got to use the home. This is our first home game, of course, since Real Madrid. We've played 2 away games. We've got the tough ones out the road. We need to start getting the points now in these next 2 games. And we showed that we can do that over the course of the last 2 away games. The rights and the wrongs from last week, I'd like to focus more on the rights, because there's a lot of things we done in that game that was pretty good. You know, the way that we attacked the game when we had our chances, we got forward very, very quickly. You look at the goal, for example, that we scored. It was some lovely, fluid stuff from Celtic. The way that Jota moved into position to finish off the goal. It's moments like that if we create them more and more tomorrow night, we can score more and more goals. We are so good at kind of bringing an intensity to our counter-attacks that given the chance, we should score more. So I'm hoping we can create that. There was certainly a lot of positives from that game last week that we can take into this. You know, we've got to talk about the players in a moment, the updates, but we are still a strong side. We've still got really good forwards. I would love us to get into this game early, you know, try and get a goal in the opening 10, 20 minutes if possible. Put the fear in Leipzig. Because it's not an easy place to come to Celtic Park. Real Madrid struggled in that opening 45 against us at times. The big thing was we just couldn't find a goal. Find a goal in this game, you're looking at someone not as good as Real Madrid, and you're talking about a very winnable game over the course of the 90 minutes. So, you know, we've rabbled on about certain things. We better talk about the big story for this game. Jota could be out. I have sat here and I have waited all day for Ange Postecoglou's press conference, which has just finished in the last few minutes. I'm awaiting the update on Jota. Of course, went off at half-time against St Johnstone at the weekend. Apparently, it was for fatigue reasons, not directly to do with an injury. However, he wasn't at training today at Lennoxtown. He was absent from training. And that has obviously raised a big question of whether or not he'll be available for tomorrow. Now, Ange Postecoglou, very blunt at his press conferences as usual when it comes to these fitness updates. He likes to keep us guessing, especially when someone's on the brink of a return or whether or not they'll play. Jota's update, simply put, if he's right, he'll be featured. If he's not, he won't. That was similar to the words of Ange Postecoglou, effectively what he said. If he's right, he'll play. And if he's not, he won't. So we've got no official confirmation as to whether or not Jota will be available tomorrow. Now, the one thing I'm leaning towards on a positive side of things is when he usually says something like that, they're okay. You know, he surprises us, they're in the starting 11. But I'm just getting the fear a little bit that Jota won't be there tomorrow because he wasn't at training today. Jota's the calibre of player, the quality of player who is good enough to play a game with missing a day of training. You know, it's not going to change Jota. It's not going to harm him massively. He's that good a player. So I'd imagine that missing one session on Monday isn't the end of the world. However, of course, it raises the question whether or not you bring in Haksabanovic instead, you bring in Maeda instead, and you give one of those guys the chance up against Jota, and you maybe, if he's available, leave Jota for the second half and you keep him on the bench. It's one that we're just going to have to wait and see what happens when the starting 11 comes out tomorrow. There's no point in guessing whether or not he'll play. We've got our update from the manager. It doesn't offer much of a definite answer. So we're going to have to wait and see. It's a big miss. Like, no matter what you say, you know, I seen Ryan McGinley on Twitter earlier getting a few pelters for saying that Jota's been off form recently. I don't necessarily agree that Jota's been off form recently. He scored the equaliser last week against Leipzig. He was very good in the game against Leipzig over good spells of the game, I thought. I think that him being off form would just be a general kind of shows for the whole team, doesn't it? I don't think it's necessarily Jota's off form. Celtic haven't been great as of late. I don't think it's got anything to do with his form. He's a fantastic player, and he's contributed massively. People get irritated at times because he tries too much or whatever, and it's very understandable. But it's a massive miss when you don't have a player like Jota. And I know I love Haksabanovic, and I would love to see him starting on the left-hand side tomorrow, absolutely, but not to the expense of missing Jota. He scored last week. He's great in the big moments. He's arguably the best player in this country. I don't want to see Jota missing any games, to be quite honest. So let's talk about the opposition a little bit then. We don't need to go too in-depth because we've done that last week quite a bit. They've not exactly changed much in a week. However, there is a fresh face through the door at Leipzig, and they have indeed made a signing since the last game, a much-needed signing. Obviously, last week against Celtic, Peter Galassi, the goalkeeper, had to go off with an injury, which left him quite scarce in the goalkeeping department. So they have made a signing. Yes, they have brought someone in, Ørjan Nyland, former Norwegian international. I think he still is a Norwegian international. I'm sure he still gets called up. Anyway, Ørjan Nyland has signed for Leipzig to replace Galassi, which means I think he'll be thrown right in tomorrow. He's obviously better than the backup options Leipzig have. He's signed for the club yesterday on a free contract because he was a free agent, so he signed on a free contract, yes. And yeah, he's in the statement quite simply says he's in to fill the role of Galassi, so I'd imagine we'll see him play tomorrow. A bit annoying. I would have rather they played the keeper who they don't think is good enough, but ho-hum, let's get on with it. Game at the weekend for Leipzig, a 1-1 draw with Mainz, which means their overall form looks a little bit like this. It's been a bit ropey, but it's been a big change, obviously, for Leipzig with the new manager coming in, Marco Rosa, coming in to take the place of your man, forgot his name, Tedesco. So the form hasn't been great over the last 5 or 6 games, but they've showed signs of improvement. They, of course, beat us. We've seen that. But the 1-1 draw with Mainz at the weekend is okay. It's decent to see that. You know, they drop points. They're looking still a little bit ropey. Hopefully they bring that same sort of ropiness to Celtic Park if possible. But they are a really, really strong side. I mean, let's have a look at the team prediction I think we'll see for tomorrow. One change to that side that played against us last week, and that is the change of Galassi to Nyland. And you look around that team and how much damage those players done to us when given the opportunity. It's that front four. It is absolutely terrifying. And Kunku, Werner, Soboslai, and Andre Silva, those four are so lethal moving forward with pace. And that's why I get the fear with the likes of Stephen Welsh playing at the back, because they've just got so much quality in such quick phases. They don't need too much time to think about things. We've seen exactly that last week. But it's a team that, you know, we did handle very well at points in the game, so we just need to do that. I mean, they scored 2 offside goals as well. But I bring back the first offside goal, the Nkunku one. The way that they ripped us apart for that goal and obviously got called off was just next level. It was world-class stuff. And we need to be prepared for moments like that. And maybe that's why we need to bring in a defensive midfielder for tomorrow's game, which we'll get on to. But they're crazy good. Crazy good. But hopefully they're a little bit slack at certain areas and hopefully a little slower like they were at the weekend against Mainz. That would be handy. What about our team? What is the predictions for that? Here's my team prediction on screen now. A couple of changes from last week's game. Will it be Jota or will it not be Jota? I am going to predict no for now. I don't know. I'm going to go Haksabanovic in the left. I'll be delighted if it's Jota, but I'm going to go for Haksabanovic. Just judging off Ange's comments, I just can't read whether or not he'll be ready to play. I think he could be involved on the bench, but I'm just not sure. So I'm going to go for Haksabanovic. Aside from that, basically the same team from last week, with obviously the big change being that McGregor comes out with the injury, and I've put Abildgaard in. I'll come to that in a moment. Also, Carter Vickers back in the team, thank God, but I do think it'll be Stephen Welsh who plays alongside him. I don't think that Jens will come back into the team. Obviously, Jens was out with an illness, so he missed the game at the weekend. But I think because Welsh has played so many games recently, I think that he'll stay in the team for a bit of just continuity. He played with Vickers at the weekend. I'd rather it be Welsh and Vickers, to be quite honest, but I'm going to go ahead and say it'll be Welsh and Vickers. Apart from that, yeah, that's what I think is basically the exact same team as last week. But one big thing, obviously, is Abildgaard. And at the weekend, of course, we went with Haksabanovic sort of in a 10 role with O'Reilly and Hatate joining him in the midfield. Celtic could very well do that again, but I just feel like, you know, last week we had McGregor, who does a decent enough job at being a central defensive midfielder, you know what I mean? If we just throw that away to play 3 sort of attacking midfielders, I'm worried of what Leipzig could potentially do. I don't know how the manager will think about it, but I'm going to go ahead and say Abildgaard to start the game, and I really hope he does. Now, I know we've not seen enough of Abildgaard to say that he's even up to speed to play a game like this, if he's good enough to play a game like this. But you look beyond him, the options aren't exactly, they aren't springing out. We've got McCarthy, who contributed really well at the weekend, in fact, but I just don't think he's got the, I just don't think he has it in his system to play 90 minutes against a team like Leipzig. And Aaron Moy, once again, just don't think he's the defensive midfielder we need for a team like that. So for me, it leaves us with Abildgaard being the most sensible of options, personally. So that's my 11 that I'm going to go with for tomorrow night's game. And finally, I'm meant to do my score prediction as well, aren't I? I hate doing it for the Champions League games because I don't want to overexcite myself, but then I don't want to underexcite myself at the same time. I'm going to go for 2-1 Celtic. Just because I think this is a really winnable game for us. I really do. If we can just do the things that we do well with a bit more execution, with a bit more just score. You know what I mean? Take your chances, Celtic. And if we can just use the home crowd advantage, keep Leipzig out a bit, I think we can win this game. And we need to win this game. So I want to see that in all the players. I don't want this to be a letdown. We've had so many European letdowns in the past when there's been games that we've had to win or we think we should win and we haven't. So I'm hoping we don't get a repeat of that tomorrow night. So I'm going to go 2-1. Anyway, that'll do it for today's video. If you've enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know your predictions and such in the comments below. And I'll see you all next time.